out because we were starting at 7. So I'm hoping that we don't have an influx of people showing up at 7 o'clock when things are good, but it is what it is. So anyway, I see a lot of familiar faces and some new faces in the crowd this evening. My name is Dara Cockrum. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Northwest Wayne Chapter of Families Against Narcotics, for those of you that I didn't get an opportunity to meet on your way in. And we have been, our Wayne Chapter has been in existence going on 5 years. We started in the fall 5 years ago, meeting, and then we've been in existence for 4.5 years with meetings. So we've had some people in the audience that have been with us right from the beginning, and we're very grateful for their support. You know, we lost some momentum with COVID. Obviously, we don't have the normal crowd that we usually have. COVID really kind of impacted the people, the amount of people that I think feel comfortable coming out. So hopefully in time, COVID will be a thing that we all say, yeah, we lived through COVID and we're good, and I apologize for any of your loved ones who got caught up in that, but I'm hoping that it could be something that can be put behind us real soon. So for those of you who are not familiar with Families Against Narcotics, I'd just like to take a little bit of time and share with you who we are and what we do. We are a grassroots organization that has been around for 14, 15 years now. And it was started by who now is our executive director, Judge Linda Davis. She was one of the founding members of our of Families Against Narcotics, along with some other folks who found themselves in the same situation, where they had their children who had suffered with heroin, opiate addiction, and when they went looking for help, there was no help for parents. And so she was just kind of dumbfounded. Took the people that she had met with that were in similar situations. They met in the basement of a church, and that's how FAM was formed. It wasn't, as Linda tells it, it wasn't a very happy beginning, because everybody was kind of fighting and trying to figure out, you know, pointing fingers, and they decided that it's a lot better to try to get along and try to solve this issue than it is to, you know, point fingers. So we're very grateful for that. And today, we have 22 chapters across the state of Michigan, which is super fantastic. And our whole purpose is to provide education, support, and hope to family members who have loved ones that struggle with the disease of addiction. So we're happy that you found us, happy that you're here. And we have a great lineup of speakers this evening, but before we get into that, there's a couple things that I did want to address. One of the things is, for those of you who are active and vocal in talking about this disease, I thank you, because I really feel like the message is getting heard. You may have seen recently that the DEA just last week sent out a notice that they haven't sent out in nearly 6 years, I think was the number, that there were a lot of counterfeit medications that are out on the street. And it's by the grace of God that finally came out, because I think all of us in this room, this is not new to any of us. You know, we know that fentanyl is being poured into the Adderall and marijuana and all these different medications that unfortunately our young kids are getting their hands on. And, you know, if it doesn't kill them right away, it's forcing them into a life that they would have never chosen themselves. And so we're very grateful for that. The other thing that I just read today, there was the pharmacies, not all pharmacists, like all physicians, are not all created equal, right? So there was a federal lawsuit I found that they were going after some pharmacies, I believe in the Cleveland area, that were distributing an exorbitant amount of pain medication, and they're going after these pharmacies, and they're saying, you know what, this is not okay in our community, and you cannot continue to, you know, fill prescriptions. Somebody should not, a young person should not have 17 prescriptions filled. And so my hat's off to all of you, because I know it's not one of us that's making the difference, right? It's all of us working together and facilitating the change that's so necessary. So keep up that good fight, okay? You'll notice here that we have a lot of our signs, our sponsorship signs from our wonderful golf outing that we held at Fellows Creek back in September. It was called Around for Recovery, and I want to, all of us want to just take a moment and thank all of our sponsors. Some of them are here this evening. We have Skywood here, who's been just a great supporter of ours from the get-go, you know, they provided dinner again this evening, but also we're providing our lunch sponsorship for that event, as well as, you know, just helping to feed us, which is so nice because we appreciate that. So thank you. Andy here is representing Skywood this evening, so thanks, Andy. Also, I would like to continue to thank Sweetwaters. You can see Sweetwaters was one of our silver sponsors this year, and for the golf outing, and again, they continue to provide the coffee that you have. So if you are in Canton, please stop by Sweetwaters Coffee and Tea on Canton Center Road in Cherry Hill and let them know that you heard about them from Families Against Narcotics, okay? And then all the other great sponsors. This golf outing was an amazing feat. It was the first one we ever did. We don't golf. Me specifically does not golf. Laura golf, but very few people on our board golf. So trying to put together a golf outing when people really don't know how to golf is a feat in and of itself. So suffice it to say, it was like putting on a small wedding. For those of you who have done weddings, you know that it was a lot. I have not, since my husband and I got married 30 years ago, so lots has changed in that department. But we did it, and we were super excited for all of you who participated. We were able to raise over $14,000, which was super awesome, so thank you for that. And so that money, we're going to be able to reopen our Sober Living Scholarship Fund, and for those of you who have been around, you've heard that term before, and those of you who are new, we started our Sober Living Scholarship Fund. We have 5 vetted sober living homes in the Northwest Wayne area, and what we do is provide 2-week scholarships for folks that are struggling, and it just helps them get back on their feet. You're going to hear from our speakers this evening the importance of having someone go, you know what, it's okay, and you matter, and we're going to get through this together. So we're super happy to be able to reopen this program. We haven't started it yet, but we will be starting it very soon as we can catch a breath from everything else that's been going on. So I'm happy about that. You'll notice in the back by where Laura is, there's a sign, and the sign says Amazon Smile. Do we have Amazon shoppers in the audience this evening? I know I'm a big Amazon shopper, so here's my ask of you. Are you familiar with Amazon Smile? Everybody familiar with Amazon Smile? Okay, for those of you who are not, if you go to your Amazon app or Amazon on the internet, and you type in the search bar like you were searching for, you know, a bicycle or something, and you type in Smile Amazon, and the first thing that will come back with is charity that you want to donate to. So you click on that, and the instructions are in the back. They look just like this, so you can take a picture of this on your way out if you would. It doesn't cost you anything, and Amazon gives a portion of your purchase back to specific charities. So ours is listed under Northwest Wayne Families Against Narcotics. When it comes back to you, it will say it'll say Families Against Narcotics Livonia. That's us. So just click on that, and then when you go on to Amazon, you just type in Smile Amazon, and then the portion of your proceeds will be going to help our chapter. And it's something that you can change. So if you support lots of charities, you know, lung cancer, breast cancer, what have you, you can change that every quarter. I would just do it on the quarter. Don't do it on the month. Do it on the quarter, because I think with the quarter, they collectively take, you know, a portion of the proceeds for the quarter. I think it makes it a little bit easier. And since it's the beginning of the quarter, no time like the present to do it. So thank you for doing that in advance. Let's see. Our Stronger Together Families and Friends support group, we have some representatives here this evening. And that is we have 5 different meetings a month for those of you who are new to FAN. This obviously counts as one. Our Family and Friends Stronger Together group meets twice a month on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of each month. They have opted to continue to stay virtual, and for the mere fact that their group really grew over the time that they were forced to do Zoom. So they picked up so many people from, is it all just in Michigan, or they?
All in Michigan.
All over Michigan. The UP, exactly.
Bay City.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So we find, so this group is great because what they do is they don't just get together and talk about the issues that they're living with. They actually, that's part of it, but they only meet for an hour, so it makes it very doable. The other thing is that they have a program in place that is like, it's a 12-step. So Jackie Sanders actually wrote this protocol, and it's a 12-step protocol for the families that are in there. So what it does, as opposed to having the families go in and, you know, talk about how painful the life has been for them for God knows how many years, they're able to follow a program that actually helps them get stronger, thus the name Stronger Together. Because that's the whole point, is that, you know, you can really only have control over you and how you can, the stronger you are, the more support you're going to be to your loved ones. So it's really a beautiful program and has done nothing but grown over the past 4.5 years that we have been in existence. So we thank you very much for that. We also have a grief support group that meets on the first and third Monday of each month. Tuesday? Oh, sorry. First and third Tuesday of each month at the PC Alamo Club. Thanks for that clarification, Lisa. That is unfortunate that we have to have that, but the reason that we do that is because for those of you who have lost loved ones due to addiction, you know that it's a different pain. It's just totally different than losing your grandmother or, you know, your sibling or something. So for that, we're very grateful for the folks that are actually running that program. This evening, I would like to introduce our speakers. We have two great speakers this evening. Amy Buchanan, I think, you want to go first, Amy? Or did it matter?
I think we planned
David's going to go first? Okay. I'll introduce you both, and then you can come up. Okay, so Amy Buchanan is the former assistant principal at Smith Middle School in Troy. She's the current business manager for Rivers Bend PC, an outpatient behavioral health treatment center in Troy. And David Clayton is one of our very own from FAN. He is the program director for a new program he's going to share a little bit about this evening called Harmless. And I think that you guys will find this to be very interesting, especially those of you who are an advocate of harm reduction, because I think every step that we can take to help somebody get on the path of recovery is a good thing. So it's an initiative focused on harm reduction as well as the outreach coordinator for Families Against Narcotics. Aside from overseeing the Harmless support team, David spends his time presenting to a wide variety of groups, from high school students to hospital personnel, from medical conferences to athletic programs, and from businesses to university students and faculty. Along with being a person in long-term recovery, David serves as a director for the Macomb County Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force, president of the Macomb Community Adult Drug Court nonprofit, and vice president of My Care Health Center. And in his free time, we get him this evening. So thank you, David. So why don't you come on up? Let's give David a round of applause.
Thank you, Tara. And thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. In my perfect world that doesn't exist, I would love to see every single seat here filled, and there would be standing room only, but hey, maybe they just haven't made it here yet. Aside from that bio that Dara read, that's who I am. I've been with Families Against Narcotics for about 7.5 years. I came to a Families Against Narcotics meeting at about, I don't know, maybe 60 days into this journey that I call recovery, and they kept me, and I've been here ever since. I started off doing a few speaking gigs at some high schools every now and then I became a youth coordinator, then I became outreach coordinator, and then I oversaw half the state's chapters, and then and now I get to start my own program, which is called Harmless, which is a harm reduction initiative. And anytime somebody gives me a platform to talk on harm reduction, I will talk in nauseam about it. But for the main focus of why we're here, and I'll get into all of that, is you know, as a person that's in long-term recovery, which means for me I haven't had any mood or mind-altering chemical in my body since September 23rd of 2013. which yes, I just celebrated 8 years of continuous recovery a couple weeks ago. I continue to be a voice. I continue to be a voice for those that don't have it. And if I remember at one point in time where I said that if I ever had a platform that I can utilize my voice, that's what I was going to do. And well, that's what I continue to do. Just by a quick show of hands, how many people in here have made their first contact with Families Against Narcotics tonight? Anybody new? 1, 2 people? Awesome. Thank you for being here. Anybody in here that's in recovery? Care to share? Awesome. Welcome to you. And those repeat supporters of Families Against Narcotics, I love you all. Thank you so much. When when I came to, I remember when I got to FAN and they started doing these introductions about who people were and why they're here. I saw something a lot different. I saw people that were from all walks of life. I saw people that were in recovery. I saw people that were grieving a loved one. I saw mothers and fathers, lost, not knowing where to go and where to turn because their loved one was still struggling. I saw parents celebrating their loved one's recovery. I saw law enforcement. I saw members of the community, judges, and I think most importantly for me is what I saw was what I just never wanted to put my mother through ever again. I saw that it was a community that came together that wanted to see something different. They wanted to see a change, and that's what I see when I go to FAN meetings across the entire state. I see a community that it's just different faces in these chairs across every chapter I've ever been to, and I think it's an amazing thing, and I think that programs like this should exist for everybody. As I said, I was going to be a voice for those that didn't have it, and that's what I do. So when we talk about stigma, right, we talk about stigma in different ways of like, well, hey, it's what people think, it's what people perceive somebody who is struggling with substance use disorder to look like. It's rarely based on facts, but rather just what someone thinks about. And I think one of the biggest pieces of stigma is that it does a lot to people. One, it can trigger people. 2, it can make people that are stigmatized like 5 times more likely to not want to enter any type of treatment program. And when we talk about stigma in the media, it's a whole other world. The news is what the news is. The news reports on things. Sometimes they do a factual job, sometimes they don't. I'm not here to debate that. All I'm here to do is really talk about what stigma in the media looks like today. So I'm going to go through a series of clips with all of you, and I really want this to be interactive. It's kind of like you ever go into those magazines where it's like spot the difference of like what's different in this clip, what's different in that clip. So I want to play some clips, and I want you just to see what is it that you pick out of these videos, and what the premise of the video is, and what you pick out in that. And if it's nothing, it's something. If it's something positive, it's something positive. And if it's something that you figure that could be stigmatizing or negative, please let's talk about that. Because again, this is all educational, and I do want to do my part to educate you into this. So we're going to start off here with, so we have a quick response team called Comeback. And what that program looks like is that it will be, we're now with, she'll kill me if I get the number wrong, but Aaron, I'm sorry, I think we have 18 police departments now across the state that will pretty much do a post-overdose wellness check. So what that looks like is a plainclothes officer, a peer recovery coach, and a family recovery coach will go to the residents of an overdose and simply do a wellness check. Say, hey, we heard that, we know something happened here, there was an overdose, and we're here to offer you some services, whether that be treatment, peer recovery services, basic information, maybe you're leaving them with some naloxone, or other resources. So we recently launched with the Berkeley Police Department, and Fox 2 did their due diligence, and they covered this program, and this is what it looked like.
Police officers more resources to help on overdose calls. It started in Sterling Heights, then downriver to Allen Park, now here in Berkeley. The opioid crisis has publicly taken a backseat to the pandemic, but the numbers, they're staggering. According to Families Against Narcotics, or FAN, 2021 expected to see a 40% increase in overdoses and a 20% increase of opioid-related deaths.
It's the only disease that where you're sick, you can't just walk into your doctor's office and say, I'm sick, I need help. And you get that warm handoff and a group of people that are going to orchestrate a recovery for you.
Linda Davis, a former former judge of Macomb County runs FAN, launching the Comeback Quick Response Team. It designates officers as the go-between to get those suffering with substance use disorder connected with a team of professionals to facilitate treatment.
Since I've been a detective, I've lost 3 or 4 close students through Berkeley that I was familiar with, knew as they grew up, and then to hear that they had overdosed and passed away.
Based on calls for service, Berkeley PD knows who needs help.
With people suffering from addiction, they go to the hospital, they're there for 2 days, they're out, and we're out again, you know, some of the same places 15, 20 times a year.
Big picture implications, reduce crime stats, less homelessness, and unburden the foster care system. And of course, get sufferers long-term help.
Arresting people is not the right way to do this, that it's better to offer treatment options, because then we get to the real root of why people are committing crimes.
Reporting in Berkeley, Jessica Duknak, Fox 2 News.
So it was a really good story, and we're so grateful for Fox 2 for covering that. What did somebody notice out of that? Anybody? Yes.
I just felt like it was positive in the idea of expressing exactly what this is all about.
Sure.
I felt that it was going in a positive way.
Yes.
Looking at the person that has the addiction, not as a bad person, but just somebody that could use help instead of knock them down and then try to help them.
Sure. Anybody else? Yes.
It wasn't presented in a way like in the past, for example, when they had a grandma overdosing with her grandchildren in the backseat, that then kind of criminalizes or gives an opinion really, really negative to the general public, and a message that's supposed to be a public service announcement.
Anybody else? Yes.
I think using words like person and addiction rather than addict or things like that is pretty big.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
I also agree with you that substance use disorder, using that terminology rather than addiction is really important.
That's a big one, for sure. So what I get out of that, oh yes, Dark.
I was just gonna say, one of the things that you had mentioned is that sometimes it could be a trigger for people. There were a lot of things in there that if I was in recovery, I might go, oh.
Yeah, exactly. So what I counted was 8 images in that video that didn't need to be there. We're talking about a program that's going to help somebody find a path of recovery through law enforcement. So yes, we're going to show some lights, we're going to show maybe a jail cell. But I think what we could have did was with the needle going into a bruised arm, unnecessary. The first 2 images, first images was pills falling from a pill bottle, so we kind of got that. The next image was heroin cooking in a spoon over a candle. And then it was blood into a syringe, if you saw that. All to talk about a very positive story of somebody that is, you know, could be down this road, and then also partnering with a police department to bring this initiative. I also think they could have did without showing an overdose survivor as that as well. Because again, let's just say this is somebody that is in long or in early recovery, and they're going to watch this news clip, and they're going to see it, and they're going to say, wow, this looks really cool, I'm glad something like this exists. And then they see a needle going into a bruised arm, or heroin cooking in a spoon, or pills falling down. Those are called triggers. We actually have to, if we ever post some of these videos, we have to place trigger warnings, disclaimers, before we post these on our social medias to let people know that, hey, if you ever see those disclaimers say this contains graphic imagery and, you know, viewer discretion is advised, I don't feel we should have to put viewer discretion labels on videos such as this. And yes, using first-person language, they are people. They are people who use drugs. It is a substance use disorder, right? We can start doing things in a matter of kind of what we're seeing now. This next clip that I'm going to show you is channel. This is the channel 7. Oh, this is channel 2. Okay. So then we'll just go ahead and we'll watch this one, and we'll do the same exact thing.
Is there a faster way to treat addiction?
Any more craving for drugs?
One local hospital claims it can. Drawing
why isn't everybody else jumping on board with it?
How this program really works and why a former addict says the benefits don't outweigh the risks.
Just because you drive somebody out, you're not changing anything.
Rapid Detox, Monday at 6.
So let me give you a little bit of background on this story. So Channel 7 had contacted me and they said, hey, we're doing this story on this place called Advanced Rapid Detox. We are totally against it and we want to have somebody that is an advocate to talk about this. And I said, okay. I'm like, well, I don't really know a whole lot about it. Oh, that's okay. We're going to come and we just want to kind of get your perspective because you're in recovery, right? And I said, yeah. They go, we want to come get your perspective on all this and we're going to air it. I go, okay. So Simon Chiquette comes to my home, sits at my kitchen table, and goes, we're just having a conversation here, and we're just going to kind of talk about what this is all about. Do you know about Advanced Rapid Detox? And I said, no. He goes, well, this is what it is, right? And he gives me in this, and I don't want to quote him, but pretty much what he said was, this is a place that someone can go, and they can go through all of their withdrawals through opiate addiction under anesthesia and be free from addiction in the matter of no time. And I go, well, all right. I go, I'd never heard of such a thing before. I think I remember hearing something about it, but I didn't know that was like around Michigan. And then I said, okay, well, we can kind of talk, and I just figure I'd give you who I am and where I'm from and what I do for a living now, and we're going to go from there. He goes, perfect, that's all we want to know. And he goes, so tell me your name and, spell your name and your first name and last name and your title. And I said, okay. And I told him at the time I was a regional director, and I was a person in long-term recovery, and he goes, okay, well, so about this Advanced Rapid Detox, tell me your thoughts on it. And I said, well, I'm just going to say it again. I said, I don't know enough about it to even give my own opinion. I guess, but I go, from what you kind of told me is, if really, I would like to know that if it's such a success, why isn't everybody jumping on board with it? And then I went on to say, because in my world, in where I come from in recovery, that I know that recovery is a lifelong thing. And I know that, I've been there and I've been in jail and I've been dried out, but there's so much more than that. So when they aired it, they said, when it went on the news, this was the clip leading up to it, they said, and hear from a skeptic from Families Against Narcotics, cut to, if it's such a success, why isn't everybody jumping on board with it? I dealt with probably 3 weeks worth of hate mail and constant attack by the hospital in itself. When they put the clip there on Facebook to promote it, it said, hear from an addict about this program. So then I got Simon Chiquette's number and I was like, hi, and I said, it's David. And I said, you need to change this title because I told you that I am a regional director and a person in long-term recovery, and that's who I am. Oh, I'm so sorry. The social media people got to that, I'll change it. So then they changed my title to recovery expert, which I'm not an expert in recovery by any means. And then I called him again and said, take the article down now, I do not want it aired. So then finally, after saying that, they said, okay, we will go ahead and we'll change this person to long-term recovery. So go ahead and play that clip one more time.
Is there a faster way to treat addiction?
Will be any more craving for drugs.
One local hospital claims it can, drawing in patients from across the country.
Why a leading expert says the program's safety should be questioned and how the hospital is defending its treatment of rehab patients.
If this is such a success, why isn't everybody else jumping on board with it?
How this program really works and what...
So if you look at me, does that look like me?
No. Good.
Not at all. Not even at my worst, they look like that. So then they go on to say, hear from a former addict.
A former addict says the benefits don't outweigh the risk.
So one, I never said the benefits don't outweigh the risks. But I'm an expert.
Just because you drive somebody out, you're not changing anything.
Rapid Detox, Monday at 6.
So the way the media portrayed things in that story was they took my words and they twisted them into what they wanted it to be, because why? It draws people in. They go, I'm gonna watch that. Yeah, I dealt with about 3 weeks of hate mail because of that. I was called, well, if you ever go on social media, you kind of know what people call people when they disagree with them. And I said, I didn't say any of that. And they said, well, it's on the news, and that's what you said. Fan got lit up for that because I was the face of Families Against Narcotics. I didn't get reprimanded, for that because they knew how the media was. And then they kind of called me, I think a month later, do another interview. And I said very politely, I will never, ever, ever do another interview with you ever again unless I see it first. And they said, okay. You see, when the media does these things and they cover things and I watched this news article or this news show, and it was done very, very good. It was down in Seminole County, Florida. If anybody's ever heard of Sheriff Lima from the Seminole County Sheriff's Department, and they had this kid sit down with them, and he just said, so Sheriff, kind of tell me about what it is that you're doing. And then even leading up to that, this kid was on the news, kind of like broadcasting, says, and most recently I sat down with, Sheriff Lima of Seminole County to kind of get his take on what the county is doing as a proactive measures in the, in the battle against the opiate crisis or substance use disorder in general. He did not talk like this when he was broadcasting that news story. And which leads me into the next one that we're going to play. And I apologize if some of these are your favorite news anchors. I really apologize for that. But this is all educational purposes,
Yeah,
right?
it sure does. In this 150-page civil lawsuit, their assertions that Big Pharma falsified data, knowing how addictive it was, that it should have only been used for palliative, end-of-life comfort care, but instead was pushed out to physicians as pain management, creating this natural scourge. He says he just liked the high, and it led him to a life of crime and shame. Doctor shopping for prescription painkillers.
At 17, 18 years old is when I started recreationally taking Vicodin into Norcos. And then by 19, I was introduced to Oxycontin. That was when Oxycontin, you could crush it and sniff it.
And then when they got too expensive, turning to heroin.
Yeah, I went to treatment 5 different times.
David Clayton's path to redemption started by dying twice in 2 days and being brought back by Narcan and fast-acting emergency first responders.
So many years of incarcerations, treatment centers, homelessness.
Today, the ultimate revenge, recovering, working for the nonprofit Families Against Narcotics, and standing at the front line of a major lawsuit and strategy shift to get legal drugs off the streets. The suit is mammoth. The city of...
So, we're getting better, right? So, we're getting a little bit better. In that story, actually, I did not die twice. I had overdosed for 2 times in 3 days. Yes, I was revived by Narcan. But again, in the way that they took my words and portrayed them in that story, it was a very shockful factor. They were talking about a major lawsuit. This is what we now know as the Purdue Pharma lawsuit. This was probably 2 years ago, I believe, when this was aired, maybe 3 years ago. And again, in that time, every time I say this, they go, can you please say your name? And I hand them my card now. And I said, this is my name, this is my title. And then yet they still put recovering addict on there instead of person in long-term recovery, or a person in recovery for that matter. So then by this time, after all these years, I started getting very agitated. And I said, this has got to change. Something has got to give. So every single time that I am ever a part of any type of press conference or the news is going to be there, I say to the person filming, because you see how it goes is that you have somebody there that's shooting the footage, the videographer, and then they take it and they pass it along to the next person, and the next person edits it. So what they do is they say, they'll say, hey, what is this story about? It's about drugs. Okay, well now they know, okay, it's going to be about the opiate crisis, so they go into their little database, and they type in heroin, and then it pulls up everything that has to do with heroin. The needles in the arms, the blood in the syringe, the heroin cooking in a spoon, the spoon over the candle, and they say, oh, well, we're going to drag that in there, we're going to drag that in there, we're going to drag that in there. There is a state, well, I ask you this much, on Fox 2's level, they have this database. So it's the very top of Fox News that goes to every single Fox News in the entire nation. They all use the same exact database. And I said, well, how about this, Fox 2? Because finally I got up to their vice president of Fox 2 Detroit. And I said, what do we have to do? We will give you footage. We'll give you stock footage. We'll even buy footage off, it's called Adobe Creator. We'll buy footage off Adobe and give it to you. No, we can't use that. It has to be footage that we shot. And I said, well, where are you getting these images from? I go, so you mean to tell me at one point in time you're videotaping somebody overdosing or you're videotaping someone sticking a needle in their arm? And they said, well, yeah, that could very well be our footage. It could be somewhere from LA in Skid Row. It could be from anywhere, Chicago, who knows? But it's all in one database. And I said, well, it doesn't sound right because then we're not really, if we're airing something happening in LA, then it's a little bit different than what's happening in Michigan, right? And I said, so how about we shoot our own footage and give it to you? And they said, yeah, we can do that, we can do that. So then, bring me to my next clip. We recently launched our Combat Quick Response team in Oak Park. And this is the, yep. So we launched in Oak Park. And guess who was there again? Good old Channel 7 Action News. And if you could start that over again, because it's really important in the beginning. So Channel 7 was there. I think it was Andrea Isom. There you go. And I said, listen, you guys are the only ones here? And I go, if this is going to air, this has got to change. And I said, and I shared about Simon, and she said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about that. That's not how I do things. And I said, can I give you some stuff to use? She goes, absolutely. Give me the footage, we'll use it. And I said, okay. So I emailed her everything, and this is what good old Channel 7
Well, the
came up with.
opioid epidemic has skyrocketed during the COVID-19 pandemic. But in this story, we don't want to show videos and pictures you're used to seeing when it comes to people battling addiction, because those who are suffering and the people who love them want to get beyond those images and focus on real ways of solving the problem. And as our Andrea Isom found out, that's exactly what's happening in Oak Park today.
My son Justin struggled for 7 years before I lost him to an overdose in 2017.
When Pam Blair talks about this beautiful young man, the words come from a place of lasting grief. A loss that led her to other families, other mothers and fathers suffering like she was. So Pam is pledged to give them hope, resources, and care, to help prevent them from feeling the emptiness that she does, living without her son.
After he passed, I began working with Hope Not Handcuffs and Families Against Narcotics. And it's very rewarding work.
I came as a person in recovery. So I'm now a person in long-term recovery, and I know exactly what it's like firsthand.
David Clayton is the program director, the man behind this important work. Listen as he explains H&H and FAM.
After a post-overdose at the residence, within 72 hours, we are going to show up at your door with a plainclothes officer, a peer recovery coach, and a family recovery coach. We are going to simply offer you services. If you reject services, we're going to come back. We're going to check on you again because you deserve that. Anybody who is seeking treatment for any type of substance use disorder can walk in to this police department and ask for help. They're going to be greeted with compassion by the desk officer. They're going to call one of our angels. We're going to come out and we're going to help you get into treatment.
And thanks to the generosity and funding from Impact 100, this mission and its reach is expanding.
Look for a long partnership, a positive partnership, and we want to go out and do our part and hopefully help save
of charge, and there are so many ways to receive it. Please visit our website, wxyz.com, for all of that information. Because everyone you see here is committed to connecting with you throughout your journey to recovery. In Oak Park, I'm Andrea Isom, 7 Action News.
Tiger season is over.
Right? So if that doesn't make you feel like, hey, if I know somebody that is wanting to get help, I know exactly where to go, right? In that video, you did not see one stigmatizing image. You actually saw a video that fans put together. And what that was a voice coming out and saying, hey, this needs to stop. This is what you're doing, this is what you're portraying, and let's do better. And then they took it upon themselves to do better. They even said, we're going to show you something different instead of what you're used to seeing. Because even they know that what you're seeing isn't what you should be seeing. If I saw that and I knew that someone, a friend or a loved one was struggling with substance use disorder, I would exactly know where to go, A, if I lived in that area, or I have now access to their website, and it wasn't a scare tactic. It was a very warm, well put together video, and then like two news stories later, it was back to the same thing. But the fact of the matter is that we change something, and then it's through constant education. Because if we weren't in this to educate people on a daily basis, we wouldn't be sitting here tonight, and I wouldn't have a job, and we wouldn't need to be using our voice and educating people on a regular basis, because everything would be fine, and we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in right now. So then finally, I said, you know what? I was like, I got Channel 7, so I'm just going to start pitting them against each other. And I'm going to say, hey, so I started cold calling Fox 2, literally. And I called them, like, their report a story. And I was like, and I told them, like, and I got editors' names from the article. And I'm like, oh yeah, hey, this is David Clayton. Speaking to Kevin, please. Like I knew who Kevin was. And they're like, I'm sorry, do you have a story to report? And I'm like, yeah, I just got to talk to Kevin. He knows. And they're like, this is to report a story. And I was like, okay, and I told him. He's like, oh, it's a great idea. Here, I'm going to give you the person's email address to email. Like, okay. And it was literally like, report a story at fox2detroit.com. So I'm like, I'm getting nowhere. So then I emailed that and got nothing. And then I'm like, all right, what's my next course of action? Who can I find? So I'm like spending hours and hours and hours trying to find who I can get to. And I remember, Roop Raj. So Roop was our MC at our Run Drugs Out of Town a few years ago. So I emailed Roop. And I just said, hey Roop, David Clayton here. I haven't, talked to you. Thank you so much for doing the Run Out of Town. I remember we talked for a while. We never talked. But I made it seem like I talked to him for a long time at that Run Drugs Out of Town, and I just said, hey, this is what I wanted to do. He instantly called me. And he goes, I wanted to call you because I didn't think that this would be a good topic to go back and forth over email. And I told him what I wanted to do. And he said, absolutely. He goes, to kind of like break away like the whole like news reporter thing, he's like, I feel like his wife, I think his wife is a therapist. And he's like, and I know I struggle with mental health. And he goes, and if you want to talk about stigma, he goes, stigma might not just be in the world of SUD. He goes, because me being a man of Indian descent, he was sharing these stories. And he would be, at a dinner, and someone would say, what nationality are you? Oh, I'm Indian. Oh, my urologist is Indian. And he's like, what? Like, what does that have to do with anything? Who I am? And that is also, that's a stigmatizing way. It's not the stigma that we're talking about tonight, but however, that is a way of stigma in that. He goes, let's do it. So we met in a park in Birmingham, and This is what Fox 2 Detroit came up with.
You know, if we can all do a little bit more and perhaps do a little bit better together every day, we can make a difference. That's the idea of this initiative. The hope is to squash the stigma by us taking a bit of the time and the responsibility to really think about proud Medway mother.
I have Meadows, summer, autumn, and winter. The triplets are 7 and Meadows 9.
A husband, 4, can all do a little bit more and perhaps do a little bit better together every day. We can make a difference. That's the idea of this initiative. The hope is to squash the stigma by us taking a bit of the time and the responsibility to really think about what we're showing on television. Bree Rowe is a proud Metro Detroit mother.
I have Meadows, summer, autumn, and winter. The triplets are 7 and Meadows 9.
A husband, 4 kids, a new house, and working on a degree to become a social worker. A new lease on life.
Their dreams are coming true and my kids are safe and healthy, so that's all I can ask for, really.
Life is good.
Yeah, life is good, yeah.
It wasn't always good. Bree was dealing with an addiction battle with heroin.
I've been sober a little over 7 years now. I got sober on December 25th of 2013. Prior to that, I had my 4 daughters. I was a heroin addict. I struggled with substance use disorder for 5 or 6 years before having my children. Unfortunately, it just is not the case where you have kids and all of a sudden these issues disappear. There was still a lot of help that I needed.
She got what she needed to begin healing. She got custody of her kids again. She's officially in recovery. But what isn't helpful is what the media has been showing every time a story about recovery was aired on local and national television. She watches it. So do her kids.
All of the pictures are portrayed in negative images, needles and different things that, put people in a light of not being worth saving, the dehumanizing nature of it. That's what they're seeing, and that's not what they know to their mom to be. They know that their mom was worth saving. They know that their mom was worth getting the resources. They know that their mom is a happy, healthy person outside of mental health and substance use disorder.
The media will cover positive stories about substance use disorder, about these great programmings that we're doing with Families Against Narcotics, and then they'll cut to a needle and a spoon, or a needle going into an arm, or pills slowly falling out of a pill bottle.
Images that are not only stigmatizing, but also triggering to someone who's in recovery. And so, David Clayton with Families Against Narcotics, or FAN, is on a mission to change how the media, yes, us, and other TV stations in Michigan, portray stories of recovery.
When we talk about, untreated mental illness or suicide prevention, we're not showing nooses, we're not showing guns. When we talk about diabetes, we're not showing somebody stuffing their face with unhealthy food. But for some reason, when we talk about substance use disorder, this is what we show.
So Clayton put out the challenge: change how we use imagery on television to portray people who are just like us, who happen to be in recovery.
That homeless person on the corner with empty beer bottles and, needles and spoons around you. Like, you are a human, you deserve better, you deserve those things, and you deserve the resources to become available to you.
So many things are painted in this horrible light, but there's this beautiful life of recovery that comes after it.
And if you're looking for more information on the work that they do at FAN, just go to familiesagainstnarcotics.org.
So, again, the point that I made is that, we'll see a lot of stories about suicide prevention or, untreated mental illness. And we don't show, a noose in a closet or a gun. I take mental health and suicide prevention very serious. I've lost a lot of loved ones and close friends to suicide. And we just don't show that. They don't show that on the news. But when we talk about substance use disorder, that's what we show. And so now every time that there is somebody there from the media at any type of event, we had Fox 2 at our overdose awareness night. And I said, this is what will not be shown. And I talked to pretty much got this reporter in the corner. And they didn't cover it. They covered it, they videotaped it, but they didn't air it. And that's fine. I'd rather than not air something than disrespect the people that I love and care about. because they want to get media, they want to get views, they want to get, people that tune in. The only ones that can make this different are the ones who have a voice, because the ones that don't have a voice, they feel like, hey, I'm not worthy enough, what does this even matter? It's got nothing to do with me. Bree's a very good friend of mine. All 4 of them women in that video are all friends of mine. They're all in recovery, and none of them were painted in a negative light. Bree even said into that even that person that is homeless and that is on the streets surrounded by syringes or beer bottles, they are still a human being and they're still worth something. And that can't be more true. There is so much that we can do that we don't know. I mean, especially now in today's world, people are kind of challenging everybody, right? And I feel that if we don't stand up for this and we don't do something about stigma in the media, sometimes people say, hey, at least they're covering it. I'd rather than not cover it than show stuff like we saw in the first 3 clips. Some might call me over-opinionated, but I feel that as long as I have this voice and have this platform to make some sort of difference, that's what I'm going to do. Because in those last 2 news clips, and listen, ever since these aired, don't think that every single news article or news footage that you see on Fox 2, 4, or 7 is going to be just like these, because they're not. They get forgotten about in a matter of days because somebody else edited it, is what ended up happening. But at the same time, at least we made some sort of headway, and my goal is to get to the very top of Fox 2, which I'll get there eventually. I know that I will, to stop using what we're seeing right now. Before I get into my next little bit of a spiel, before I turn things over to Amy, does anybody have any questions about anything that they saw, any input, or anything as such? Yes?
I'm just wondering, with the crisis at the border and the media, could there be some kind of political situation going on, where they're not really supporting the group, your group? Could there be some kind of correlation between what's happening at the border with the cartels bringing in all their narcotics and, they seem like they don't want, the government doesn't want to really address this issue, and it's getting worse.
I don't think that has anything to do with anything that's on the news, in my opinion. I feel that they're covering things, and kind of what we're talking about is what they are covering is it could be better. I don't think it has to do anything with politics or anything as such.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes?
I feel like these segments that we've seen that are really good, they will, I think it's so important to keep them coming, because I think that they help family members too see this humanizing and this kind of approach, rather than, the dehumanizing, and then just giving up, or just saying, just get out, just leave, I can't deal with you, because, it's obvious you're, in the media, it's showing that you're just this, this is an awful, terrible thing. So if we can see more care coming from the media versus just how devastating it can be, and more approaches to better care and treatment and help, then I think more families will be assisted in their approach to assisting their loved ones, which has not been the case.
Yeah, it makes you think now, right, when you watch those, because the first ones you're kind of like, that was well put together. And then you see,
what do I do?
right, and then you see one that kind of what we're talking about, and it's kind of like, so we started off with not so great, and then we kind of got to the better ones. And that just, it make you think now. So every time you see a story, you're forever going to think of me and this kind. Congratulations. Yes?
Well, television is one thing, but what about social media, where the algorithms reward more clicks?
Right.
So the more sensational, the more negative, the more clicks they get.
Exactly.
How are we going to control that?
I'm working on it. Yes.
Thank you for this. This is really great. And as we were watching and you talked about the stock images that they were using when they went into their database, I'm just wondering off the top of my head if they don't have some outline for that particular, to write it also to go along with it, so that all that negativity is in there.
Yeah.
And did you say that a lot of these the videos that you had shown portions of from FAN, those are all located on the FAN website? How would we find
Yep,
them?
so I'm actually gonna get those put on the staff or the chapter resource page to go to a Google Drive, to where if you do have somebody that maybe we have a local broadcast, it starts with that. I mean, we start with I started local, I just didn't put those on there, but we started with the local, the public broadcast or whatever, and get those changed. But yeah, we'll get those images over to you. Yes?
One of the things that I would like to add is that typically the evening local news lasts 30 minutes. And you've got to have a sports segment in there. You've got to do weather 4 times in half an hour. There is only a limited amount of time to grab a person's attention. And sensationalism has always worked.
Sure.
If that's all you're trying to do, is to make sure that the person watches your show and not turning to the other channel. That's a sad fact, but
I mean, if you want to see how the media or just people in general, I mean, I'm sure maybe I don't want to say we've all been there, but even I've done it at one point in time. We kind of go down the rabbit hole of like trying to argue our point with somebody on social media. The thing is that that's how people perceive it, and even like a story like this, when they shared it, there was a lot of people that loved it, a lot of people that laughed at it. They still call us, junkies, and we did it to ourselves and all this stuff. And we're not going to get through to everybody, right? These trolls are never going to go away, right? And I've learned I can't please everybody. But if I can give that person hope, or that mother hope, or that father, or grandma, or grandpa, aunt, uncle, whoever it is, that say, hey, it's going to be all right, that's my job's complete. Yes?
I like how you put that part together about maybe going into the jail, because it took me back to my addiction. Now, I'm also a person in long-term recovery, and I remember when I was out there struggling, I went to the police station to turn myself in, and they wouldn't even take me. So it's a difference. I like the change that's going on today, because today we could go in here and get some help. People could go in here and get some help. They know where to go. As to where 27 years ago, because I have 27 years clean this year, but 27 years ago, I went to the police for help. They wouldn't help me. So I like how you put that part together and you showed it. And when you talked about that very first one about the hospital, that took me back to when we used to see that commercial, the passes available. You would come over here and get cured from addiction. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
How they do that?
Yeah. So, and you made a very good point, which will segue me into my next little part, is where to go to get help, right? And I think that a lot of us that are involved with Families Against Narcotics, and we're involved with other organizations, right? DUN and everybody else that does things. We're like, treatment, I'm not going to get on the whole topic about how treatment is in the state of Michigan. That's for another day. But it's like we can access treatment, right? We make the accessibility part there. But what about those that don't know where to go? What about the ones that don't want to stop, right? My whole thing is that a couple years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, we lost a year, right? I said to myself, and I said, why do I have to wait? Why do we have to wait until somebody musters up enough courage to walk into a police department to ask for help? Why do I have to wait? Why do we have to wait until somebody overdoses to get a post-overdose wellness call? What about the people that we're missing? And we're missing a lot of people. So I dove into this world a couple years ago now that I had in my head of harm reduction. harm reduction is. For those that don't know what harm reduction is, usually when people hear about harm reduction, they say, oh, you mean a needle exchange, and then that's where it stops. It does not go any farther than that, and that's where their opinion stops, and that's what they think it is. That is in fact not what harm reduction is at all. It's not just a needle exchange. Harm reduction is pretty much just lowering consequences to risky behavior. On the way in, who wore their seatbelt on the way into their car? You exhibited harm reduction. Does anybody burn easy in the sun in here? Do you wear sunscreen? You exhibit harm reduction. Wearing a mask during a pandemic, that's harm reduction. Wearing a life jacket during water activities, that's harm reduction. Wearing a condom during sex, that's harm reduction. But then when we talk about harm reduction in SUD, kind of how we did it with the media, it goes, oh, you run a needle exchange, and that's where it stops. The first principle in harm reduction is that illicit drug use, so legal and illegal drug use is a reality. It's happening, right? And we can either condemn it, which is what we've been doing for decades and decades and decades, or we can simply meet people where they are at and provide them with the necessary means to stay relatively safe while they're still exhibiting in drug use. As my man earlier had mentioned, these are people, right? People who inject drugs, people who use drugs. This is not a topic for me to really debate. I will give somebody a presentation on harm reduction anytime they would like it. So, about a year ago, I started working the plans of getting a harm reduction program. I had contacted the state because the state recognizes harm reduction. They recognize syringe service programs, and that's exactly what I have now. I run a harm reduction program in Macomb County. I run a full syringe service program in Macomb County. People are going, as I said, are going to use drugs, whether we're there or whether we're not, and people share syringes. People find used syringes on the street and use them. Hepatitis C, HIV, endocarditis, abscesses, other nasty things that come along with unsterile intravenous injection comes along. So back in May, I started Harmless, which is our harm reduction support team. I had a team of myself and some coordinators that go out into an area in Macomb County, which is a high traffic area for narcotics use, and we meet people where they are at. If somebody wants to go to treatment, I will place them into treatment right there on the spot, no questions asked, on a parking block in the middle of a gas station and a fast food restaurant where we set up. If they don't want to go to treatment, that's okay too. I'll keep them alive long enough until they want to go. I get Narcan into the hands of people who are using injection drugs because although there is a standing order in the state of Michigan that anybody can access naloxone through a pharmacy, I challenge you. Walk into a pharmacy and ask the pharmacist for naloxone. Say, can I get naloxone, please? They're going to say, which what they said to me is, what do you need it for? And I said, well, because I just want it. What are you going to use it for? I just want to have it so I can just have it in case someone needs it. Well, do you have insurance? I said, no, I have insurance. I said, no, I don't. And they go, do you have an ID? And I go, no. I go, well, I can't give it to you. And I go, oh, okay. I give Narcan in mass amounts to people who are using injection drugs. I love people who are using. They have stories, they have narratives, they are human beings. And I know that since June 1st is when we officially went out to present day, I have handed out 163 kits of naloxone. There has been 12 overdoses reversed, reported back to me with that naloxone. Since June 1st, we have collected over 2,000 used syringes off the streets. That's 2,000 syringes that are not lying in a park or in the street or in an abandoned house. I took it a step further and I created a street medicine team. So I have a team of medical students that will provide on-the-spot medical care. That is like basic wound care. We're not doing tracheotomies or anything like that. But I know this much, that we had somebody who was using injection drugs and got an abscess from using old syringes, using shared syringes, injecting crack cocaine with lemon juice, which is horrible for your veins, and they had an abscess. We had a doctor out with us, and the doctor looked at that and said, you know what, we gotta get this looked at. Oh, no, I'm fine. 3 days later, we have a phone line that they can call, it's called the harmless line, and he called and said, David, I need help. And I said, okay, what's going on? I don't feel real well, and something's happening. I think my arm's going numb, and I can't, and I can't, and the phone died. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I tried calling back, doesn't answer. Finally, we see him a couple days later, it was a Monday. What happened is that his abscess had ruptured. And he walked up to a group of DTE workers and said, will you call 911? So they get him to the hospital. Mind you, this young man has absconded from parole and has multiple warrants for his arrest. He's in the emergency room, and if anybody wants to talk about how people are stigmatized in the emergency room, we can talk about that too. The nurses were not treating him properly. They chalked him up to drug-seeking behavior, and they called for records. You and I would know that that's medical records that they need, but this young man, being an absconder from parole, thought it was criminal records, and he left against medical advice. He comes to us Monday at 9 a.m. right when we get there with this open wound wrapped in a dirty sock and said, can you help me? We then treated that wound on a daily basis, cleaned it, irrigated it, put it with steel gauze, steel wrap, and it healed up just nicely. They do. They really do. And so now our street medics and my street team and even myself can even look at wounds and say, hey, let's not, use that injection site anymore. Make sure that we're using sterile water that's provided, medical grade sterile water. We're using alcohol swabs for pre and post injection. Because people who inject drugs are people too, and they're worth something. And there was a time to where I had, true story, I was in a pharmacy one time, and I was trying to buy syringes. Now, trying to buy syringes for somebody who's not a diabetic is actually quite difficult. And a lot of pharmacies don't want to sell you syringes, because who would want to sell a dirty, junky syringes, right? And this lady behind me, this little old lady, she goes, excuse me, I hear you're trying to buy syringes. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, I have a ton of them in my car, and I can't use them. They're all brand new in the box. And I was like, oh, okay. And I thought, for sure I was getting set up, but I didn't care. So I go up to this lady's car, and she's got like, probably 150 syringes. And she goes, I can't use them. My granddaughter bought me the wrong ones. And I was like, okay, and I took them. Well, come to find out, I could not use them either because they were too small and I couldn't use them. I tried using some of them, but that's all I could do. And then, so being environmentally friendly, even in that state of mind, I was like, I don't want to throw these in the garbage because I probably shouldn't do that. So I walked to a main hospital urgent care. And I walked into this, like, where the nurse station is. I said, hi. I said, my grandma sent me here with these syringes because I could probably dispose of them, and I want to do that, so I'm not throwing them in the garbage can.